I'm gonna start from where we left off. I'm gonna do like a summary of what I spoke about last week, and you guys can share to other people that might benefit about the eating disorder and stuff like that. And I'm gonna start. My one's a long time, they slept already. Well, so last week we started with the eating disorder, and we spoke about the most three common eating disorders that are anorexia, bulimia, and the binge eating disorder. So a quick summary on the eating disorders, which is a mental health condition marked by an obsession with food and body shape. These disorders can affect anyone, but mainly young women, as we discussed last week. Eating disorders are caused by several factors, and these factors can be genetic, brain biology, pardon my tongue, personality traits, and cultural ideas. I think a majority will be the cultural ideas of what we see nowadays with all of the medias and stuff like that. That will influence most. So people with anorexia, they limit their food intake or compensate for it by purging. Then they develop this intense fear of gaining weight, even when they are severely underweight. I'm making a summary of last week's, what we spoke about last week, and then I'm going to tackle what we're going to be discussing this week. And people with the bulimia, they eat large amount of food in short period of time, then purge. They also have fear of gaining weight despite being at normal weight, and they compensate by purge with the binge eating by purging and by excessive exercising. On the other hand, the people who do the binge eating, that have the binge eating disorder, they regularly and without any control whatsoever, they consume large amounts of food in very short period of time. Unlike the other disorders, anorexia and bulimia, they do not exercise or purge, so they become obese, overweight. So today we'll be talking about the remaining three disorders, starting with the pica, P-I-C-A. The pica disorder is more common in children. I've actually seen this several times at nursery. You know, the children tend to eat anything and everything. And pica is a compulsive eating disorder where people eat non-food items. For example, they eat dirt, they eat clay. Normally I tend to see the children eating like clay and everything else. They eat hair, they eat paper, soap, chalk, wool, pebbles, laundry detergent, or cornstarch. These are the most common items. The less common items they consume is glue, cigarette ashes, and feces. Pica can affect adults, most frequently in children, pregnant women, which they develop this desire to eat something like weird. Actually, when I was pregnant, I had this desire to eat clay, these tiny clays that the birds eat. I used to want to eat, I don't know why. I even could like feel the taste of that there. And it also occurs in individuals with mental disabilities. Some of the pica symptoms will include stomach pain, an upset stomach, blood in the stools. They are also at risk of poisoning, such as lead poisoning, because some of the pica eaters, they tend to eat as well like dry paint, which might have lead, so it leads them to lead poisoning, alaykum salam. Infection, they might get gut injury, and obviously nutritional deficiencies. And depending on what they consume or ingest, pica might be fatal. African queen, yes indeed. Then there is the pardon my pronunciation. There is the rumination disorder. This is a newly recognized eating disorder. Rumination disorder or syndrome is a rare behavior disorder where the food is brought back up from the stomach. They either re-chew it, re-swallow it, or spit it out. They describe the food as tasting normal. This means that the food hasn't been digested, so obviously they eat it and then they bring it back up and then they swallow back or spit it out. The cause of this disorder is not yet clear, but it appears to be caused by an increase in the abdominal pressures, like too much pressure, like they put too much pressure on the stomach and it brings it back up. Rumination is frequently confused with bulimia, which is not, and I'm sorry by saying this, gastroesophageal reflux and gastroparesis. I don't know if I say it properly, but try my best. This disorder can develop during infancy, childhood, or adulthood. In infants, it tends to develop around the 3 to 12 months of age and often goes away on its own. Children and adults with this condition, they often require therapists to solve it. In children, if it's not solved, rumination can lead to weight loss and severe malnutrition that can be fatal in children. Adults with the disorder restrict themselves to the amount of food that they eat, especially in public. This can lead to weight loss and become underweight. There's the disorder that is avoidance restrictive food intake disorder, which previously was called selective eating disorder. This disorder does not include having a distorted body image or being preoccupied with the body weight like the anorexia and bulimia. This disorder was previously reserved for children under 7 years old. Although it generally develops in infancy or early childhood, it can persist until the adulthood. It is equally common among men and women. People with this disorder experience disturbed eating due to lack of interest in eating or distaste for certain smells, tastes, colors, texture, or temperature. Some of the symptoms of this disorder are avoid food or restrict the intake that prevents from eating sufficient calories or nutrients. The eating habits interfere with the social functioning, such as eating out, weight loss and poor development for age and height, nutrient deficiency or dependency on supplements or tube feeding. It is important to know that ARFID, which is this disorder, goes beyond the normal behaviors such as the picky eating in toddler or lower food intake in older adults. And the avoidance and restriction of food does not include the lack of availability or religious or cultural practices. In addition to these 6 disorders, anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, binge eating disorder. Yes, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Yes, in it to pica, rumination, and restrictive food intake disorder. There are further research is found that there are other eating disorder less known or less common, and also it falls under 3 categories. There's the purging disorder. They often use purging behavior such as vomiting, laxative, excessive exercising. However, they do not binge like the bulimia and the binge eating disorder. Then there is the night eating disorder. They eat excessively after waking up in the middle of the night or they sleep. They just binge. And then others specify the feeding or eating disorder. This includes any other condition that have symptoms similar to those of an eating disorder but don't fit in any categories above. One disorder that currently falls under OSFED is orthorexia. Orthorexia is yet to be recognized as a separate eating disorder. Individuals with orthorexia tend to have an obsessive focus on healthy eating to an extent that it disturbs their daily life. So everything has to be excessively healthy. For example, they might eliminate an entire food groups because they have a fear that that group is not healthy. For example, you have these people that they completely abolish the carbs from their diet. So you'll fall under that. So they abolish the complete fear that they are unhealthy. This can lead to malnutrition, severe weight loss, difficult eating outside, and obviously emotional distress because they're like in a constant distress, emotional. They cannot eat and function properly outside because they fear that nothing is healthy, and obsession with checking everything. People with orthorexia rarely focus on losing weight like the other 2, anorexia and bulimia. Instead, the self-worth identity or satisfaction is dependent upon how well they comply with their self-imposed diet rules. So there's not much known about it yet, so hopefully this is going to be another eating disorder. They're going to classify it as an eating disorder. In the meantime, it's not classified as that yet. And this is the 6, 7 of them I spoke about, a little bit more. And we get to the end of our eating disorder saga. So if you guys have any suggestions of like a subject I can talk about next week, just shoot them on my way. If you have questions now, fire them away. Thank you. And it was actually quite fun to do like the research about the eating disorder, like so many things that came up, and the research and like going like there's so much, but I picked this one because it's like the most common, and some people actually don't know much about it, but the other ones are like still in study little, so you know. Well, let's put it this way. For example, I might be hurting someone on the Instagram or helping by doing this kind of thing, but obviously this is my page is fitness, and my people like always posting like pictures of themselves like all looking nice and slim and everything else, this will lead the youth, for example, to want to look like them or whatever. So this is why it's important for us to create a positive environment to the younger and the older, and bring like a support for everyone to know that it's okay, like you can be okay in your own body, like you can do your exercise or not, just be healthy, create a safe environment. Instagram can help, because if the people use this platform, which there are many people doing, using this platform to bring knowledge and support others and open mindset. So this will encourage people, they will teach people. But if we're using it just like for your own self and like posting like beautiful pictures, or that is not realistic, like too many makeups or like skinny this and that, this gonna create because this eating disorder start from the adolescence. I remember because I had it when I was since I was like it started when I was like 14, 15. I started developing this self-conscious, looking at myself in the mirror, and like the comments that people used to say, oh look, you look like a deformed sausage. This is one of the things I still today stay with me. Or because you're too skinny, like, oh, you're losing too much weight. And then you're like, okay. And then you start putting weight, like, oh, you're putting too much weight, you should be watching out what you're doing. And obviously by the time I reached to my 17, 18, I was like this. And obviously I was into my athleticism and everything else, my sports, and obviously I used to do the purging and everything else, and I was like literally very, very, and then obviously people was like, oh, you're getting too skinny, you're getting too that. But that mental side was like too fragile, didn't know where to go, didn't know what to do. But then it's a question of getting your own mind and so like accept yourself as you are and embrace that and develop this positive relationship with the food. But for that you need the support, obviously, because you cannot reach there on your own, if that makes sense. I'm thinking like maybe next week. It does. You're welcome. I'm thinking next week. I think I'm gonna make. I wanna go into the self-harming discussion. I don't know. Or is that like too much? Do you think it's too much? It's too sensitive. I think it's something that actually needs to be discussed, because so many teenagers and even adults do self-harming one way or another. What do you think? That will definitely be a good subject, I think. Yeah, definitely should have been how put like the warning. It's a sensitive subject. Good idea. Hey. Okay, so I will definitely get crack on the self-harming. Alhamdulillah, I'm good. How are you? So I'll definitely be doing like a content on self-harming, and I have to do the warning. How do I do the warning? I just put it there, warning, sensitive subject. Gonna discuss sensitive whatever. It is definitely a sensitive subject. Alhamdulillah. Okay, I'll just put the warning sign. Warning, self-harming, warning. Correct? I should not be laughing, but as I always say, okay, warning, title, Warning there. As I always say, every single subject I talk about, I have no, what's the name of that thing? Like, no, we're talking about self-harming. Self-harming, like people that cut themselves, burn themselves. For example, eating disorder is another way, like in a way of harming yourself, punishing yourself. Like there's different ways that people use ways to hurt themselves, inflict pain, banging their head on the walls, punching the walls, anything just to feel that pain, to release the internal pain to the physical. Did it make sense? You're welcome. I hope I see you again next week. Now, like, it's finished now. Now just chatting along, and then I'm gonna be saying bye-bye soon. And by the way, I started reading this. Can you see it properly? And I was actually there. I was like, where am I? Matters of 5. And I came this page, I saw this here. It says like, self-love is the balance between accepting yourself as you are while knowing you deserve better and then working towards it. Vex King. No, that's true. So, hey, thank you so much for joining me, for putting up with me throughout this time. So next week, same time, gonna be talking about sensitive subjects. So I hope I see you here again.